Teaching SEO at Cambridge is fantastic until a pandemic shuts it down. We're talking about the next step into getting back together for SEO in the real world today on The Edge.
Go! Your weekly digital marketing trends with industry trend-setting guests. Powered by your digital marketing pioneers, Site Strategics. This week's featured guest is Andrew Optimisey, founder of Optimisey. Now, here's your host, Aaron Sparks.
This is Edge of the Web Radio. I'm your host, Aaron Sparks. Every week, we're actually bringing you amazing guests to chat with and talk about digital marketing news. We go after a key marketing topic for our digital marketing audience. Whether or not you're part of an agency or a freelancer or part of a marketing department in your firm, this show is for you. So make sure you go check out everything over, all the show material over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Site Strategics is our title sponsor for the show. They're the pioneers in the agile digital marketing methodology. Our core specialties are technical SEO, SEM, social media, conversion rate optimization, as well as core web vital optimization. For those of you playing at home, that's a big deal coming into May. So check that out. We're focused on results-based marketing that actually works. So if you're interested, give us a call over at 877-SEO for web or 877-736-4932. All right, just wanted to go over some housekeeping on The Edge, let you know who will be coming up on the show. We're going to be talking to Roger Monti from Search Engine Journal, as well as Mark Traphagen. Be sure to check out the recent shows we've done with Carolyn Lyda and Pedro Diaz, as well as Kevin Indig. If you're interested in being part of the show, just let us know over at info@sitestrategics.com. We'll see if we have a connection there and see what we can do to bring you in front of our digital marketing audience. Set your reminders on YouTube to make sure that you get notified when our videos post, and make sure you like and subscribe to our video channel, as well as give us a few feedback points on iTunes. So we're certainly always welcome for reviews on iTunes, as well as other podcast aggregate platforms. Let us know how we're doing and how you enjoyed the last show you listened to. So make sure you check out all the weekly news podcasts that we have. Each and every Tuesday, we're dropping the news of the week as we discuss it with Morty Oberstein, who is the SEO liaison over at Wix. You never know what we're actually going to be talking about, except for the news. We'll be covering the news, but my gosh, you don't know what's going to be coming out of Morty's mouth. So check in and tune in for that each and every Tuesday. But for that, let's get done with the housekeeping, and let's pivot around to this week's industry expert. We have the Andrew Optimisey. Andrew Cock-Starkey, also known as Andrew Optimisey, is a SEO consultant. He runs his own business called Optimisey. He also ran a series of SEO events in Cambridge where he got to speak with some phenomenal speakers to come to Cambridge and share their SEO knowledge. You can find more about him and the events over at optimisey.com. I'm not doing you any service with this bio, Andrew. I need to know how you got into SEO. Give us your own words. Let's dig into the Optimisey history.
Hi, Aaron. First, thanks for having me on. It's a massive privilege. We were talking about beforehand, but I'm a bit of a fanboy. So, yeah, this is a real treat for me. I've been a long-time fan of the show. So
fantastic. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And
did you hear that, Jacob? Did you hear that, Jacob? Fanboy. Yeah? We need more of them around.
I gotta find a fanboy.
Yes, you do. I've got my own. You can't have mine.
All right, I'll work on that.
Andrew, thank you for the show, and forgive us. It's a Friday, and things are kind of coming apart at the seams.
Every Friday is a good day, right?
Absolutely.
But, thanks for the slight sort of fudge over the kind of whole surname thing. So yeah, Andrew Optimisey is how most people know me. Andrew Cock-Starkey is my real name. Yep. But yeah, slightly like not so spam filter friendly. So I'm known by Andrew Optimisey, Andrew Cock-Starkey. I'll respond to most things if unless it's
will you respond to Joe?
Yeah, sure. If there's money in it, sure.
All right, I see. I see where we're at.
How did I get into SEO is a good question. yeah, I guess like lots of people, I kind of fell into it a little bit by accident. So actually, my background, my degree was in media. I studied to be a journalist. I went and worked at the BBC, which is kind of a big media organization over here in the UK. Most Americans know the BBC. You guys know the BBC, right?
Only because Monty Python came from the...
Exactly. Monty Python, all that kind of Doctor Who, that's BBC.
Yes.
But yes, I worked for the BBC Sport site and got paid to watch sport, which was pretty awesome.
Cool.
But I got hooked into this whole kind of thing of when you're writing all these stories, there'd be a developing news story, and you'd change the headline through the day, and suddenly the traffic would just go through the roof. It was like, what was that? The story's the same, like, there'd be some soccer player was injured or whatever it was.
Right.
You'd change a few words in the page title or in the URL or whatever it was, and suddenly the traffic would jump by like sort of 30, 40, 50%.
There's something there.
That was the thing that was the bug that bit me, that I was like, that's interesting. So that's how I kind of fell into SEO.
Got it. So fast forward a little bit. Now you have your agency. How long has Optimisey been around?
Yeah, I managed to coincide launching my own business with about 2 months before the first lockdown kicked in the UK.
Oh, my Lord.
So I had my business plans all sorted out. Pandemics were not part of my business plan. So around about 2 years ago.
Didn't have a contingency for that, huh?
Not so many. I mean, I had contingencies for lots of things, but contingencies for events shutting down, people not going anywhere, marketing budgets being cut left, right and center, that was not in the business plan.
Understood.
I was very lucky. I managed to ride out most of that storm. And I think quite like a lot of people in SEO, actually it's meant more work in some ways, because there's nothing quite like a pandemic to make people realize their website is super important, right?
Absolutely. No, and we've certainly seen that, and certainly had a number of our guests share the same opinion, is that digital marketing had a huge growth, but at the same time, SEO is getting almost revitalized, because there was such a clamor of, is SEO dead? Over the last 4 years, there was content marketing trying to overshadow what true SEO and technical SEO its value was really all about, and I think there's a resurgence for darn sure. So you did something relatively unique with your relationships at Cambridge. You were running a number of live and free events back in 2019 and 2018. How long were you doing those events in Cambridge?
So that was in a little bit of a build up to going freelance. So I was still doing that when I was working in-house, working in digital marketing teams and doing SEO in-house for a couple of employers around the area.
Got it.
And because I did that kind of stuff, I would have friends of mine that ran their own businesses, and they would say, "Oh, you guys have all had this. I'm sure everybody that works in digital marketing has had this. Could you just and help me out with this?" And I wasn't sure about how this works, and I got this email from somebody who says they can get me to the top of Google for $50. And does this work? And what should I do? And so you'd end up giving friends advice and stuff, but a lot of it was helping them avoid self-harm. They'd get these spammy, terrible offers and emails and, things to buy links and do all these content spinning things. And you're thinking, okay, don't do that. But to you and I and lots of people listening, that was obvious. It was blindingly obvious. Of course you wouldn't do that. Why would you do that? Right. But to lots of these people, so a friend of mine who runs their own jewelry business, she is an amazing jeweler. She makes phenomenal, creative things that I couldn't even dream of making. But she is rubbish at SEO and terrible at digital marketing, and she falls into all these traps that nefarious people want to set for her.
Oh my Lord.
So I guess in a way that starting those events was my kind of way of doing that. It's like, right, if I can get smart people to come to Cambridge and share advice, then people can come, and people that are into SEO will come, and they'll learn something from all those people. But people that just would love to hire an SEO but haven't even got the budget to pay themselves, really, they can pick up a few little tidbits, and it's that kind of stuff that that was what my motivation was behind starting this, but just helping people try and do stuff better.
That's awesome. And you've had some stellar individuals come to Cambridge to teach, but I didn't realize that this was an effort for you to be able to help your local community understand the industry and understand what they should be paying attention to and trying to avoid those pitfalls. That's actually really laudable. Oddly enough, that's how we actually started doing our show way back when, because we were actually airing on public radio around here in the Midwest, Indianapolis, Indiana, and we were really trying to use this as a way to educate our clients on what we were doing, because they didn't understand it. So it was a matter of, okay, did you hear this show? Here, play this, and this is what we're talking about. But on top of it, it was kind of a debunking process and trying to clean up the myths of SEO. Because back in the day, we were in the throes of the black hat, and we needed to be able to kind of challenge the space. It was right around 2011 whenever the black hat smackdown from Google started to happen with Penguin and Panda. So this is why we were doing the show then. Anyway. This is not about me. This is about you. So you're able to help your local businesses understand a good deal more about these somewhat complex concepts, but also trying to protect them a bit. So that's fantastic. Some of the speakers that you had there are the top of the list. You had Alita Solis, Marie Haynes, Chris Green over at Strategic. A local SEO company there. Kevin Endig, who's been all these have been friends of the show. Tell us some other speakers that you've had at Cambridge.
Yeah, so I've been ridiculously lucky, honestly. Looking back on it, it sounds really like big-headed, but I'm surprised myself that those people came to speak at my little event in Cambridge. But people are nice. People are really, really nice. Right. And I ask you go out and you ask these people. And they say yes. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they're super busy and they're really like, I'd love to help you, but I can't. Or, sure. But it was with a lot of people that I've been really lucky, and like people like Aleda, where I thought there is no chance that Aleda Solis is, people that like keynote at massive international conferences. And I'm like, do you want to come and speak at this little event in Cambridge? Like maybe 60, 100 people might turn up at most. And she said yes. And it was like, amazing.
That's amazing. Well, you did have
people that you talked about. I mean, I don't want to get into a kind of like, measuring contest with you guys, because like the backlog of like guests you've had on the show is kind of a different level really, but yeah, I've had people like you've spoken about, like Alida and Kevin Indig, and spoken Carolyn, who you mentioned at the top of the show. She was one of the very first speakers at one of the sort of second or third events that I did.
Really?
So she kind of dialed in, and she was on the show from Atlanta. That was pretty amazing.
That is awesome.
Yeah, amazing people like Luke Carthy came on and spoke about e-commerce. Super smart people that came on and shared their knowledge for free, and it was amazing.
Well, one, don't sell yourself short, because it's great to be able to have somebody come out in person, especially these thought leaders. So you did a great job there, but you also had something going for you. You had Cambridge. That's a nice brass ring to go be able to speak and teach at Cambridge, right?
Well, it's a good story with Alida. So Alida was very excited about coming to Cambridge, and I think she was kind of checking off kind of places on her, not bucket list, but like places she wanted to go that she'd never been before. And hey, Cambridge is on that list. And, while I'm there, I can come and talk about SEO, sure. She almost went to Oxford, which is the other one.
Yeah.
That was a little bit awkward, because there's a whole kind of university rivalry thing between Oxford and Cambridge. The cities, we have this kind of slightly love-hate relationship. So when she kind of mistakenly talked about Oxford,
yeah, she tweeted that. She tweeted that before she came.
She really did.
The good thing is she owned it in the video. She did it in the presentation. Yeah. Like, whoops.
She knew where she was coming, but it's an easy thing. I get, if you're not British, like, big university place in England, right. Oxford, Cambridge, one of them. They're kind of, and like, if you go and visit the cities, they are similar in lots of ways, but yeah, there's a kind of a few hundred miles between, so not really.
But we all know Cambridge is better, so I mean, let's just stay there. Of course.
We just had the boat race, so the boat race is a really big deal, where they kind of do this rowing race down the Thames.
Oh yeah,
Cambridge just won the boat race, flat women's race and the men's race. So Cambridge is clearly better at everything.
So why do they even show up? That's the question.
I mean, it's tradition, so it's cute of them to turn up.
They're masochists. All right, so you had this event going on here. The turnout, you had 60 to 100, maybe 150 people. And it's all local businesses, relatively speaking, right?
Yeah, mostly local. So, I mean, again, so some people really, again, it kind of amazed me. They would travel a long distance. So we had people come down from, Manchester, which is up in the north of England, down to Cambridge to come just for the events, because I was able to get these phenomenal speakers, and the events were free thanks to all the sponsors that supported the events, so the venue was amazing. It was great that they kind of provided the venue, because, it's good. It was a big kind of co-working space called the Bradfield Centre here in Cambridge. But, it's good publicity for them to be able to reach all these local businesses and say, hey, look, we've got the really nice location, and there's a local recruitment firm like Brand Recruitment that sponsor the event, so that they kind of cover the pizza and the beer, which, that brings people too, hey, because people like free pizza and beer.
Absolutely.
There's
a constant repetition of drunken SEO that keeps on coming around on multiple shows here. I don't know what's going on. But here's the deal, is that you had a unique event and you had free pizza and beer, but you also were tying into these SEO professionals that are wanting to give back and wanting to educate, right? So there's something unique there that I wanted to kind of get to here, is that it's, and I could be biased here, but I don't see that many other conferences where there's so many people that practice a particular profession that want to give back so much and educate and teach and help others learn the ropes that they've actually climbed up. I could be wrong. I really don't see that many different types of industries doing that, except for conferences that are trade shows that are always kind of oriented towards the almighty dollar or pound, right?
So it is amazing the amount of knowledge that people will give away for free. There's the number of, I've been lucky enough, a couple of people that came to the events were like, are you sure this is free? Like, should I not be paying someone for this? Like, can I contribute towards the pizza or something? And it was like, that's really sweet of you, but this is okay. Huh. But yeah, that's one of the things I love most about SEO, is the generosity of people in it. And of course, like any industry, whichever you pick, like, you're going to find bad apples, and there are people that, of course, want to hoard all the things for themselves and keep it all to themselves. But there are an absolute shed load of really nice, lovely people in SEO that just want to help raise other people up. And, that's how we all learn, right? You kind of share something and people go, actually, when I tried that didn't quite work that way. I tried it this way. And that makes you think again, you're like, okay, well, yeah, why is that? That's interesting. Why didn't my idea work on your example? And why did your example not work on mine? And let's, both kind of kick this around a bit, and everybody gets better, right?
Absolutely. So all this was going great, and you had events planned for last year. Obviously, the pandemic happened. You had to stop everything. And I didn't want to make this a COVID show, but what was the fallout, and what are you looking forward to with the events? Are you looking at the future to be able to start those back up again?
I'd really hope to bring them back again as soon as it's safe to do so. Yes. It's really weird to think about like that first. So I had an event planned in March, the kind of year or so ago, when the first lockdowns here in the UK kicked in. And I remember really thinking really carefully about, should I go ahead with this? Right. Does this seem like a good idea? Nobody was really quite sure how contagious things were at that time, or how like serious it was all going to be. And I kind of made this really tough decision to be a bit like, look, SEO is really important. Of course, I think it's the most important thing in the universe, but actually, health and people's safety, I could not live with myself if I'd, involve myself in any way with something that helped somebody's grandmother get ill or something. It would be a terrible thing to have to live with. So I kind of pulled the plug on the event, and that was, at the time it was like, oh, well, we'll be back in 2 or 3 events time. This will all blow over. And that was like, 18 months, 2 years ago. It blows my mind a little bit to think about, how naive I was about it at the time. I think a lot of people were. But yeah, I hope to bring the events back again soon. I've been sort of tempted to kind of dip into this kind of virtual event kind of thing. But I think where I've struggled with that is one of the USPs for me, like the kind of unique point about, was I was bringing these amazing people into Cambridge. Right. Now, the fact that you can then, you can hear Alida Solis speak in Cambridge, and then you can have a beer with her afterwards and a slice of pizza, and, ask her your questions. And all the people that came to these events, it was phenomenal that, again, like how generous they were with their time, not just to kind of do their speech and then just, wipe their hands and just run out the door as soon as they were done. They would hang around afterwards. They were quite happy to talk with people and answer people's questions. And that's an experience you can't get, right? You can't get a kind of one-on-one with Alida Solis very easily. I mean, she's kind of doing it with her newsletter now. I think if you refer lots of people to her newsletter, then you can get a kind of a quick Zoom call with her. But these kind of people, like, just they seem, in some ways, even though they're really lovely, they don't mean to, but they seem kind of unreachable. They're like, oh my God, it's Kevin Indig, it's Caroline Lydon. She's like, this really important person. She won't speak to me. Right. And they do. They come, and they're really nice, and they'll answer your questions and share knowledge. And that's an amazing thing to have.
And this is the point, it's kind of the build up to what I was wanting to achieve here is this opens up an area of conversation about kind of the new future that we're looking at for meetups, for learning and in-person events. And you actually, you tied it up very, very, very nicely in the fact that nothing connects better than direct personal connection, human connection. And we're trying our best. I mean, we're a year from lockdown, and there's been so many adaptations to be able to try to keep the conferences going. I mean, we just talked to Carlisle, and they like I said, they've got 6 or 8 virtual events for the entire year because it's just not safe to be able to get everybody out there. We're losing so much ground on personal connections here. How do you feel? What do you feel that we've lost in our virtual meetup? Have you participated in some of the virtual conferences over the past year? And I guess what do you see the future of for small conferences? I know big conferences, there's a huge spreader concern here, but the small conferences, are those going to be able to light up more? Now I'm hitting you with 5 or 6 questions. Take one, go with it.
So I have participated in some of the virtual events, and I think some of the big events have done it really artfully and done it really well. So some of the kind of technology that allows you to do things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. So some of these kind of like Zoom breakout rooms where you get into a room with like 5 or 6 of you. That's really a pretty good approximation of what you get when you turn up to these live events. You don't quite get it. That's where a lot of the value was, and where a lot of the people that came to the events told me they got the value because they could have a beer with not just the speakers but with other like-minded individuals, where there's lots of people that are sharing the same struggles and have been through the same kind of things with you,
right? And
you can kind of kick the tires around that and work with other people that have done those things. And it's really, if nothing else, even if they can't fix your problem, it's nice to know that it's not just you that has that issue. I think that the virtual events, say some of them have done it really well, but it's not quite the same. But it does, everything's a kind of double-edged sword, isn't it? One of the things that's the best things that come out of it, and one of the things that I really enjoy from doing the events that I do, is that we video them. So again, one of the sponsors, again, a local media company, they're called Breadcrumb Media. They come and they video all the events, and it's a good way for them to show off the cool stuff they do, right? Because it's a live on-the-fly video editing that they're kind of doing. It really shows off their things, but then the videos go on my YouTube channel, and then people that aren't in Cambridge can watch this thing, and they can hear from these amazing speakers, and people in India and Australia and Indonesia and Canada and the US and whatever it is can all watch these kind of events too.
Sure.
They miss out on that kind of live element. But
you had 5,000 views on Alita's video her own. So I mean, kudos to you. I mean, that's some good granular stuff there. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep on going.
I was just going to say, you don't get that kind of, after you watch the video, you almost have that kind of burning, I really want to ask that question. And you can't get that quite up through the YouTube setup. I don't run them live, not yet anyway. But I think so. It's kind of pros and cons, isn't it? It's like, you miss out on that kind of, discussing things over a beer. But, when you think of like big events like Brighton SEO and SMX, those kind of events, there's no geographic limit. I mean, it's slightly annoying if you live in a different time zone. You have to wake up at 2 a.m. to attend this event, but it's a lot easier to do that than it is to buy several $1,000s worth of flights to come to Germany or come to the UK. Absolutely,
but there is such a, again, for the SEO community especially, there's such a fabric in these different conferences, in these small and large conferences. There's this connective tissue almost of all these individuals to be there, rub elbows, and not to wax poetically here, but that we're missing that. And I do think that your type of events, right, are kind of the tip of the spear to get back to connection. We're not going to be able to have large events, but such things as 100, 200, 300 individual controlled events may very well be our way back to a level of reality, a level of connectivity. The hybrid model looks to be something that we have now moved into, or at least there are certainly a lot of benefits of being able to remotely connect to these different events. But I mean, just understanding that we're not going to have these large swells of people around for the foreseeable future, we now need to start planning for how do we create this what do you want to call it, the tactical SEO grouping, so we can actually meet, connect, have hybrid virtual connections, but still learn, because it's that communication that's getting lost past the threshold of your screen there. So have you heard of any evolutions to be able to have those type of hybrid events that could benefit us all in the near future in the SEO community?
So I know lots of the events are talking about this kind of hybrid events so that they can try and do. And I know some of them, to be fair to them, some of them are trying to do it anyway. Like pre-pandemic, there were events that you could attend virtually, and you could watch on video, and you could join into a chat room, and you could type in your questions there and have like a moderator present your question in the room. So as close as you can get to being in the room without being in the room. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's hard, and I think it's one of the things that is quite often forgotten, I guess, a little bit, is it's hard for the event organizers, like the events that the kind of scale that we're talking about. Mm-hmm. It's a lot of money to set up a that's for the live kit you need to stream things, and the bandwidth you need to live stream stuff, and you need someone to kind of sit there and moderate it so you can kind of see the questions that are coming up and make sure that people that are online are getting a good experience, as well as the people in the room are getting a good experience. And It's like, already as an event host for just kind of 40-50 people, I need to be in like 3 places at once. It's hard. Yeah, so when you're a really big event and you've got enormous big ticket sponsors, then that moves you up to a different echelon of being able to afford this kind of kit and support that enables you to do that. So with smaller events, is that possible? Sure. Like, technology is amazing, and we can we're chatting over Zoom now, and we've all got webcams and microphones and all this kind of stuff, but it's hard on the event organizers.
It really is. And that's the cobble industry that has actually sprung up literally over the last 2 years of the kind of live remote broadcast that can actually connect the virtual audience and the location or event audience. So we're certainly looking forward to seeing more and more of these small conferences and these small meetups starting to take hold. We obviously are cheering for you to be able to get back in and start having these thought leaders come out to Cambridge and speak about their craft. I can only imagine with the clients that you've worked with that if they're also been stuck behind their screens as well. Have they come to respect your SEO craft to a greater degree now that they have to pay attention to the screens that you're showing them?
That's a loaded question. I'm not sure if my clients are going to be listening to this. I'm going to say yes, of course. My clients are amazing. I think so. I think that, we kind of touched on it earlier, that pandemic has really focused a lot of people's minds on how important their website is. Yep. And it's still surprising to me how few businesses Google themselves. When it's like, they're really like, I'm not getting very much traffic, and you're like, okay, well, what do you do? And it's like, I'm a shoemaker in Cambridge or whatever, and you Google shoemakers Cambridge, and they're nowhere. Right. And it's like, well, how have you not noticed this up until now? But again, I'm a digital native. I work in this stuff every day. These people make shoes, and they sell shoes. So they're, they were previously living this kind of face-to-face existence. And it's only when they've now had to rely on their website to, try and keep their businesses going, that then suddenly this stuff becomes a lot more important. And then they're really like, who's that guy that was like, always rattling on about that SEO thing in Google, whatever. Oh, Andrew, what's his face? Yeah, maybe let's talk to him. And yeah, it's certainly focused a lot of people's minds. Absolutely. Well, we certainly want to wish you all the luck in getting these events back together again, because I do think it's you're like I said, you're the tip of the spear, so to speak, in what we probably could do here in the near future. So let us know whenever you're having those next events, because we really want to be able to see those things start to prosper up. I wanted to see if you'd be, before anything else, I actually wanted to get you commenting on one particular topic, and you shared this with us in our pre-show questionnaire. When it comes down to SEO, why do you think people have a vested interest in painting SEO as complicated and tricky? Because it makes them money. It's the short answer to that.
Done. All right. Drop the mic.
Show over. So can I go?
It's a pretty important thing because you know what? Our industry has had that blemish or that black spot on us for over decades now. SEO has been seen in the past as snake oil salesmen, just bait and switch type of things. You yourself were talking about trying to kind of protect companies from charlatans that were trying to sell $50 a month SEO packages, right? That's why you did some of the events, just to be able to help educate and demystify things. So, yeah, I get that you want to hide your cards and be able to make it a little bit more complex, but that's still that stigma of SEO hanging around that I'd love for you to just give us maybe a light on how we can debunk that,
So I love Google. Google basically, without Google, I don't have a job. So, but I think in some ways they're almost a bit complicit in this. Like the number of times you hear from Google, just create good content. That's all you need. Like, just create good. We got this. Don't worry. Like, we've got algorithms and all these really complex AI bits of huge kit and machines so big they need entire football stadium size servers to work them.
Right.
We've got this. Just create good content. It's fine. And you have these small businesses and they go, oh, okay. And they just create good content and they tank. And they're like, oh, did I create the wrong content or did I do this wrong? Like what happened? And then they get this email from, somebody that says, oh, I can get you to the top of Google for $50. Mm-hmm. And they go, there must be something else, right? Because I did what Google said. And so maybe this is the thing I need to do. And they fall into the trap. And then folks like us come along afterwards and, then it's like, okay, well, you've done all these terrible things and you've done this wrong and this wrong and this wrong and this wrong. And you bought all these links and you did all these terrible things you shouldn't have done.
Right.
And I can unpick that for you. But even before I start, it's going to cost you this much just for me to unpick the damage the last guy did. And, that's that then all, then how do you, as a business owner, you're thinking, well, you're telling me the last person tricked me. It's like when you go to get your hair cut, right?
Yep.
If you go to a new hairdresser, the first thing the old hairdresser says is, I cut your hair last time. Oh, they've made such a mess of it because I'm so good and the last person was so bad. So you should definitely trust me. And then
you get
fall down this trap multiple times. And then SEO is terrible and it's full of snake oil sellers.
Absolutely.
And so therefore you're all charlatans and you're all tricking me. And how are they supposed to know the good from the bad? And so that was, like you said, that's why I kind of started the events, because it's like, if I can just put more good out there, and more good information from good people that don't have a vested interest, they're not selling anything, they're just trying to come and share good information, then that helps people understand, okay, what does good look like? So now I can start to tell a little bit more about what good and bad looks like. Okay, this person's a scammer, this person's not, this person I'm not so sure about. That's kind of help. That's where I was going.
Absolutely. So, businesses are a good deal more digital savvy, but I can't tell you the last time I came across a prospect that hasn't hired a digital marketing firm and they've got a bad experience from it. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that businesses now have all, for the most part, have all tried out digital marketing. And you're right, is that they've tried and made a number of mistakes because they didn't hire the right people. So there is this continual reset that you need to have with your clients as they come to you. Nope, that wasn't correct, but this is why it wasn't correct. So we as SEOs have an obligation to help educate our clients with correct information and break it down so it's easy to understand. You're also absolutely right. There's still a very high wall to actually understand how we can actually optimize towards Google. Google's sharing a heck of a lot nowadays, right? But there's a gray area of what we can do, and it's still a continued trial, a test and trial type of scenario. But there are some basics that we do know, right, that we can actually help and guide businesses who are listening to this podcast or reading this content that they can actually work through right now. So
absolutely,
I wanted to start off with some key concepts here, and then I'd love for you to chime in with some other guidance here. As I see it right now, one of the biggest factors that a site should be looking at is speed of the site. Right now, we're dialing into Core Web Vitals. It's going to be a ranking signal in May of 2021, and it's probably the most difficult thing for a business owner that doesn't have any level of technical chops to understand. Why is speed so important, and how do I improve the speed?
Can I do a quick caveat before we do any of this? Because so one of the things I do at like my events, because it's really difficult, because you get some people who are phenomenal SEOs and like half the talks is wasted on them because they already know this stuff backwards.
Yeah.
And then at the opposite end of the scale are people who are just like, they were really tentative about coming to an SEO talk because they're like, it's all going to be in like Greek to me and I won't understand any of it. And so at the beginning of all the events, I say, look, if you just take one thing from this event, just one, like one thing, I could do that. Just take that one thing, because that will already put you 10% ahead of your competitors, because your competitors aren't at this event and your competitors aren't doing this. And, or if they are doing it, you're going to at least catch them up a little bit.
Right.
So I think, I guess I'm just thinking like for your audience, you've got a big audience and there's going to be some people who we're going to talk about stuff that to you and me feels like 101, like, oh my God, I can't believe you don't do this. Or anyway, you don't do that. Oh, you're a terrible person. But like, if you just take one or two of these things, even the stuff that we're about to talk about is like, I don't even know where to start with this. Just do one of them. Yep. Just do one. Just start and try and make a little bit better. And that's the kind of stuff that you get a little bit better each day. You improve by even 0.5%, not even 1%. You can start to move ahead, because your competitors, if they're not doing it, even moving ahead by 0.5% makes a big difference, right?
Absolutely. And by no
speed.
means,
sorry, your question was about speed. I should talk about speed.
Knock it out. Yeah, go for it.
So the biggest win I see with speed, and for a lot of the sites I work on, particularly again with small businesses, is images.
Absolutely.
Everybody loves images. You're a local baker. You want to have pictures of your cakes looking absolutely phenomenal on your website. And so they, people again like DIY this kind of stuff. They have their iPhone or whatever at home. We've all got these camera phones which have mega pixel cameras, and you take these beautiful photos of your cakes, and you have it uploaded to your website. It's a kind of 4 or 5 megabyte file, and the pixels in those things, it's like you could kind of decorate a soccer stadium with those.
Yep.
And then they shrink it down. They put it on their website in a box about this big, like kind of 2 or 3 inches across on the screen. And you don't need the file sizes to be 4 or 5 megabytes for it to look amazing at that size.
Exactly.
That's okay. It's like you can kind of shrink that stuff down. It will still look amazing, because I talk to website and they're like, oh, I want the cakes to look amazing. I sell cakes. If the cakes look lousy, I won't sell cakes.
Right.
And there's a compromise you can find between the cakes looking amazing and the file size being Magna Carta length inside, like almost biblical in the sense that there's huge files that you don't need to have on your site. And then you get to these kind of product pages where they put 5, 10, 15 cakes on the page.
Right.
And the page load is like kind of 40, 50 megabytes. And then your customers are trying to get it on their 3G connection on a lousy train back home when they're commuting and they're miserable and they want to buy a cake to cheer themselves up. And the page takes 3 or 4 minutes to load just because of the images. So that is the single biggest, quickest win that a lot of like small businesses still miss.
That's
so
right.
Just go and look at your images. Are they showing at the size that you're uploading them at? If you don't need to show them at that big size, shrink them down.
It's one of those common mistakes. And any person that's managing their WordPress website or their Squarespace website, just take a moment, use some common software to be able to reduce. So many of our cameras, our phones are taking at 300 DPI, reduce it down to 72, reduce it down to the size or the aperture in which you're actually trying to actually get it on screen, because these things are huge. It's very simple, and that is one of the most important things whenever Google's looking at how fast do you load your site for our customer, right? Knowing that you've actually gotten that down to the optimal size, right? And again, it's very easy to do with Photoshop Lite. They've got a number of free programs out there that can do this very, very easily. Just take that one step before you actually publish, and it's going to be immense from a value standpoint. Great. That's one good takeaway. All right. What about? Well, I mean, this is kind of. It's a vague concept, but high quality content. Let's just talk about quality content, because that in itself is, there's a lot of different takes on it. But what is not quality content? Let's go there. And so businesses can actually kind of scrutinize their own content. Go for it.
So what is not quality content is not optimizing it and thinking about your audience. So there's a big temptation here to say, word count is quality. So the more it is, the more likely it is to be quality. So if you write 50 words and I write 5,000 words, mine is more likely to be quality. because I've written more. That's the kind of assumption.
Right.
But that's not right, because in SEO world, like the kind of thing you want to be looking at is meeting your customer's need. So if I wrote 5,000 words for the question, what's the time in Chicago? I've overdone it a bit. If you've written 50 words for what's the time in Chicago, you've probably overdone it a bit. All I want is like kind of two numbers. I need the hours and the minutes. That's it.
Yep.
You know, those kind of things. Like, so matching quality content is finding what your audience needs. And, you know, sure, if you're going to like start writing content about, you know, interest only mortgages on your house, and you write 200 words for like a big financial product where this is going to be kind of like, you know, this other kind of SEOs, we love an acronym. So this kind of YMYL thing that Google always talks about, like your money or your life. So if it's a thing that's going to affect your customers, you know, money, their life, their wealth, their health, and you write 200 words about mortgages and kind of throw it away at that, you're not really cutting it.
Nope.
So quality content is a kind of a movable feast, kind of like you said. But it's better than is out there. Google is moving particularly to this kind of phase where, you know, people are kind of churning out these kind of 500, 600, 700 word articles because that's what they think this kind of sweet spot is. And then they're kind of getting upset about, well, why isn't Google indexing my content? Why isn't Google ranking my content? I've written this thing about, you know, the best shoes to buy if you're going to play tennis. And the answer is because it's already got better. It already has better stuff. So if you're like kind of, you know, if you think of Google as this big library and they've got a book on tennis shoes and it's the best book in the industry and it's written by experts and everybody loves it and raves about it. And you write this new kind of like little leaflet about, you know, the shoes that you like, who's going to read your leaflet? The best stuff is already out there. So like, you know, you've got to be better. And that's a really trite and easy thing to say, like, oh, you need to be better, like do all this skyscraper content, 10x your content and all this kind of stuff. It's like, you have to have something to offer. Like, you know, what is it that's your USP? If you kind of sell mortgages and you sell shoes and you sell cakes, why should I listen to you? What is it about you and your experience that makes you worth hearing from?
Very good. That presupposes that you know what's out there. You have to, as a business owner, you have to understand how much Google knows already and what's out there in the topography, right, of useful content. You can certainly find what differentiates yourself, and that's exactly where you should be focused. Is what do you know that's different? How are you different from everybody else who's publishing content out there? You have to have that take. You just can't assume you're going to throw something out there and it will rank. You're absolutely correct. Quality content is pretty subjective, obviously, and we are also dealing with how Google actually looks at your content as quality. So we do know that the number of links that are coming to these pages of content have a kind of a credit of sorts, for lack of a better description. But we don't want to get into all the link building and all the in the space of actual inbound, because that's a whole other journey right there.
Oh, we don't? Oh, come on. No. We got about 3 hours for this show, right?
But kind of last on the journey from what a business person could do, an owner of a shop, that's an easy fix that could actually solve some problems, is broken links on a website. So why is that such an important thing when it comes down to something that could be very useful and easy, right, execution?
So if people know enough about links, you know, so links is the kind of analogy that people often use, is like votes. So the more links you have linking to your website, talking about, you know, you being the best shoe shop in Cambridge, because that's the silly example I've now talked myself into using. The more people that talk about your shoe shop in Cambridge, then the better you must be, right? So it's like votes, but, you know, votes are not all made equal. So a vote from my lousy blog that I write, you know, about things I like in Cambridge and nobody's ever heard of me is a vote. A vote from, you know, big international publication like the BBC or, you know, the Guardian newspaper or whatever, that's going to carry a little bit more weight. So people get very hung up on like kind of links and like, oh, you know, how can I get good links? I'm just a little shoe shop in Cambridge. I'm never going to get a big international media organization to write about me. But one of the links that you can always control is the links on your own website. And again, that's another one of the things that I see lots of small businesses kind of miss out on. You know, they kind of read these things about like, oh, I should be blogging. Like, everybody says I should be blogging. I should write, you know, a blog post a week or a blog post a day or a blog post an hour or whatever the kind of bunkum thing they've been told they should do. And they knock out all this content and it's, you know, 501 words or whatever the kind of sweet spot they've kind of read in this blog post that told them they should do it. But they don't internally link to any of their stuff. So when you kind of write this blog post about like, this is the kind of, I don't know, the local soccer team that I went and I fitted out all their shoes for them for free because I'm just a charitable, nice person. When you're talking about the soccer shoes that you sell, internally link to your page that sells soccer shoes. If you have a broken link that links to your page that sells soccer shoes and people follow that link, A, it's a lousy user experience, and B, you're not sending clear signals to Google. Google needs this kind of, so they kind of look at your website and it's almost like an index, right? Because you get this book out of the library. We're going back to a terrible, I love an analogy, Aaron, I'm sorry. Gonna keep going with. So you got the book from the library, right?
Yep.
There's hundreds and hundreds of pages in this book, and it's on my shoe shop website. So all the pages are going to be about shoes somewhere, right? How do I find the page that's about soccer shoes? Because all the pages that mention soccer in a kind of abstract way all go, if you're really looking for the mother load of stuff about soccer shoes, it's on page 52.
Right.
And you go, okay, right, so that's the right place. So that's the way to kind of think about it with your kind of internal content.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you talk about those things that you sell and that stuff that you do in that place that you do it in, link back to your pages that do that thing.
Absolutely.
So you talk about cakes and it's like, right, great, let's go to the cakes page. Then Google gets a really clear signal of like, right, of course the whole website's about cakes, but this is the page on the website that's about selling cakes. Interesting
enough, we had a discussion here internally today, and we were talking about that, how we actually communicate that to our clients, and came up with the analogy of a table of contents type of reference. It's not the navigation, and bear in mind, it's not enough to actually have menu-driven links. That's a user experience, but that's not actually telling the importance of a particular page. It's the inline links of the content and being able to reference your top pillar pages, your top most important subject matter. That should be a table of contents reference guide, right? Within the content of your site. There's a whole nother discussion of semantic SEO and relationships and all the abstract concepts, but when it gets down to it, refer to the most important pages as well as their subtopics, right? In a way, have a master plan of how you internally link away from your menu system, and make sure that it's not broken. Make sure that if you move a page, all of those links come along for the ride. That's the broken experience that we're talking about right here. So one, invest in understanding your own content and creating relevancy between different pages, but also know that if you're shifting things around, you have to have an inventory of when things shift. Make sure that everything shifts with you. Yeah.
It's almost like that kind of mystery shopper thing, and you get people that go and test out how a store works and like do all the customer service people help you in the right way, and can you find a checkout and can you find a but like you need to do that with your, again, the number of small businesses that don't use their own website often enough. So sure, they check the homepage, is the website up to date, right, fine, good, and I've got 101 other things to do, off I go. But just every now and then, like set aside 20 minutes for yourself over a cup of coffee or tea or whatever it is, and try and buy something off your website. Generally try and buy it. Like, maybe if you can refund yourself, sure, actually go and buy it. Check out the checkout system works.
Absolutely.
But like, again, like with clients I found where they had a new thing they'd added on their homepage. They wanted to promote a particular piece of content and they forgot to link it properly. So they'd copied and pasted a snippet from somewhere else and they put the link in wrong. So they were using anchor text to link to their soccer shoe page or whatever. But that didn't take them to the soccer shoe page because they forgot to change the link. So they copied and pasted everything over. But so then they're sending confusing signals to Google, where Google suddenly got this really important thing on the homepage saying, these are the soccer shoes. And it linked to the ballerina shoes or whatever. And it's like, Google's like, whoa, I don't know what's going on here. And everything gets a bit mixed up. So you go back and you fix that one internal link. It wasn't a broken link, but it didn't go to the right place. You fix that one thing. Clear signals go through.
Absolutely. Soccer
shoe page ranks, ballerina page ranks for ballerina related things.
There you go.
You don't really want people that are looking for ballerina shoes to be searching for soccer cleats. That's no good.
Actually, we boil all this down to three things. All you have to write about are shoes, cakes, and books. And
that's pretty much like 90% of my clients. I wish it was. That would be great, wouldn't it? cakes and soccer. That would be great.
Well, Andrew, I wanted to finish up with this. I appreciate it. And I didn't want to go too many steps. I just wanted to unpack some basic things that we can help businesses that maybe don't even have marketers that can work for them. These are basic things that they can do to be able to improve their standing right now. So I appreciate your participation there. Last thing I want to cover here, you recently just had, pardon me, a article that you posted that I wanted to cover with you because you took some time and actually focused on some of the top people in SEO that we should follow that maybe we're not following, that should have more followers, right? So what I wanted to do is, and I wanted to have Jacob throw it up on the screen, is ask you, this is kind of weird because I want to actually the host is asking his guest actually host a part of this show. Kind of guide us through who these individuals are. We knew a number of them. There's some alumni of the show, but let's talk about some of these individuals. Now, we're not going to be able to give everybody their due course here, but let's talk about a few of these that you've mentioned and why they're stellar individuals, if that's all right.
Yeah, I mean, this was one of those kind of weird things for me where I kind of passed this milestone of getting 10,000 followers, which is just an insane amount of people to be following me. You know, I mostly tweet random stuff about my dog and, you know, which particular beer I'm drinking that weekend and stuff. Hopefully there's some useful SEO mixed in there too. But then I look at some of these people that are doing and making and sharing amazing stuff, and they've got far fewer followers than me, which is all like, you know, well, that's a very nice humble brag, Andrew. Well done. But I just think that if you've got some weird kind of quota on your kind of number of followers, stop following me and follow these people instead, because these folks are amazing. So there's some really cool people in there that do some really amazing stuff. And the idea, the kind of threshold was that if they've got already got more than 10,000 followers, then they don't need any more followers really. You probably already, like me saying like, oh, you know, hey, Alida Solis knows a bit about SEO. That's not useful. Everybody knows that.
Got it.
John Moo, he's a good person. You should follow him. He kind of works at Google. Again, everybody already knows that. If you don't know who John Moo is, that's fine. But, you know, go and find these people yourself. But I wanted to kind of shine a light onto some of the people that maybe were a little bit more under the radar, and I think should get a bit more attention.
Fantastic.
So yeah, I guess where do you start on this?
Well, let's start with number one.
Number one was Areej, who then ruined it. I kind of mentioned before the show that I write very slowly, but when I started writing this, she had just under 10,000, and now she's like kind of skyrocketed to kind of like 12 or 15,000 by the time I actually got around to write. Exactly, it's all down to me clearly. But no, unfortunately for me, I can't lay credit to that. It's all Areej's work. So she was way ahead of that. But again, she's probably somebody that hopefully lots of people have heard of. If you haven't, she runs the Women in Tech SEO community. Mm-hmm. She is a super smart technical SEO. She worked for Zoopla, who is like kind of really big price comparison site here in the UK. So really like kind of cutthroat SEO, like to rank number one for kind of like, you know, price comparisons on anything is super hard. So she was working at this, you know, and getting them to rank and doing some amazing things there. And she's just started a new job actually with a stationery company. So she's super smart, and again, one of the people that makes me feel really glad and lucky to work in SEO, because she has built the Women in Tech SEO community to kind of give these less representative groups opportunities, and it's a really lovely community that kind of helps lift each other up, and you know is a microcosm of what I wish SEO could be more like. So Areej is awesome.
Well done. Well done. Yeah, absolutely. Certainly recommend that. All right, friend of the show is number two, Christina Azarenko. Tell me about her.
Yeah, Christina is one of those people that makes me feel really stupid. Like, you know, I flatter myself that I'm kind of quite smart and quite good at a lot of things. And then I see the stuff that like Christina kind of knocks out in a lunch break, and I'm really like, okay, well, this is like we're not even playing the same game here. So it's like, you know, she's playing baseball and I'm playing cricket. I don't even know what's going on.
If you see some of her LinkedIn posts, oh man, she's all over. She's doing fantastic, and she did actually roll out a Chrome extension that was, I mean, got her just over 7,000 followers. Very quickly, right?
So, you know, as you do, just like, you know, just build a Chrome extension.
Why not?
You know,
just do that.
Kicks and giggles. Like, why wouldn't you?
but it actually is a very strong extension. It analyzes schema, analyzes HTML elements. Fantastic tool. Certainly recommend grabbing a hold of that. And she has her own company, Marketing Syrup, that she's doing gangbusters in Canada, and she's teaching basics. She's teaching intermediate SEO, and she's really leaned into the education. That's what I really wanted to tie into. There's so many educating practitioners here. They're wanting to share their information. So Christina certainly makes marks there. Very good.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, we should plug the extension, right? It's Seo Pro Extension if you're looking for that. So yeah, go and stick it in Chrome. And yeah, it's again something that I use almost on a daily basis. It's just, you know, there's all that kind of key information you need about a page in a click on the page.
Yep.
And, you know, Christina is one of those people that sees a problem and then fixes it. And then not only fixes it, but and shares the solution with everybody else about how she fixed it, so we can all try and do a bit better. So again, she's super awesome.
Very good. All right, let's talk about Hannah Rampton.
I'm trying to remember the analogy I use for Hannah Rampton. So she does stuff particularly in Google Data Studio. So for those that haven't come across Google Data Studio, if you're kind of overwhelmed by Google Analytics, there's just too much information in there, then GDS, Google Data Studio, is a really cool way to kind of, it's like a data visualization tool.
Absolutely.
So you can plug in your analytics and your Search Console data and, you know, whatever else, whatever data sources you've got, as it's got an API, you can pretty much pull it into Google Data Studio. And again, I kind of flatter myself that I built some pretty cool stuff. I built some nice dashboards in Google Data Studio. I got some chops here. And then you see the stuff that Hannah's kind of building, and it's like, again, just like on a whole different plane. And again, she built it and then she shares it. And it's, you know, this kind of stuff where, you know, all you have to do is kind of copy her homework and then you can pass it off as your own. It makes you look even half as smart as Hannah, then you're doing pretty well.
Absolutely. See, I mean, sharing is caring, right? So just
or sharing is like, you know, literally stuff that you can then rip off and try and pass off as your own. But as long as you give Hannah credit.
Give her credit. Absolutely. Skipping through, we certainly can't do everybody, obviously, but why don't you give us there's top 20 there. We're certainly going to have the show link there, but give us a handful of others to go through real quick, if you would.
So I tried to get a good mix. So the next one on the list was Claire Carlisle. Mm-hmm. She's a real local SEO expert. Mm-hmm. So I guess some of the other people that I picked out, I think we already talked about Luke Carthy on the previous segment. He's, you know, super sharp, e-commerce. And again, one of those people that doesn't just talk a good game, but he actually kind of does it as well. So he's started his own brands. He runs e-commerce stores of his own. So he is kind of walking the walk and talking the talk as well.
Well, that's a rarity.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, we all know lots of people that talk a good talk. I mean, I'm probably one of those as well at time to time. But it's really good to get advice from people that are kind of operating at the sharp end of these kind of things.
Yep.
So there's some really smart people out there. Andy Simpson's another good fun one. So I kind of equate him to my kind of sliding doors moment because he's called Andy and he's British and he lives in the States, and I've kind of, you know, flirted with the idea of moving over there a few times. So he's kind of like, oh, you know, I wonder that's maybe like where I could have been. And yeah, maybe I'm not quite as smart as Andy, but
you're going to have to change your Grammarly setting if you actually come over to the US.
Exactly. Yeah. Start spelling things the American way.
Oh, the right.
But Andy, again, like, you know, just shares lots of like great local SEO stuff. And again, is like, you know, right at the sharp end of doing things in local SEO. And,
very good.
You know, he's one of those people that kind of, a bit like Claire Carlisle, I guess, they kind of, when they sort of think out loud. So when they're thinking about things, and they're like, oh, I wonder how this works. Like, I'm going to poke this with a stick and see how many bits fall off and then try and fix it again. And they're kind of happy to do that in public and learn with everybody watching, and then, you know, share what, you know, when they mess it up, they go, huh,
that's bold.
Try this thing and it didn't work. Yep. Don't anybody else do that. Like, let's try and work out how we can sort of, you know, hack together a way to work things around through that. So
very good.
Again, just people sharing really cool stuff. So
absolutely.
Just trying to think of who else I can mention. Two more.
Yep.
Chris Johnson. So he's at Defaced on Twitter. He's, again, one of these people that just kind of, you know, seems to have 27 hours in a day when the rest of us have 24. He kind of just, you know, he like builds sort of Chrome extensions and cool little tools. We talked about Core Web Vitals.
Yep.
So he's built a Chrome extension which can pull the Core Web Vitals score into the search results.
Oh, wow.
So you can you can Google your competitors and see like, okay, well, because I think, in my opinion, Core Web Vitals is going to be one of those things that's kind of relative. So if you're terrible on Core Web Vitals, but slightly better than your competitors, then you're probably going to be okay.
Huh.
If you're terrible and your competitors are amazing, I mean, I'm going to be proved wrong. I'm going to regret this, and like, you know, you're going to pull this out and like replay this as a clip. Like, look at those idiots. So being able to compare yourself to your competitors and like, you know, see, okay, right, how far behind the ball are we? So that's
fantastic.
People like Chris build amazing things. Wow, who else? Miracle. Can I pick out Miracle in Ameti Archibong?
I guess so. All right.
I'm probably mangling her name, so sorry, Miracle. But she works at a company called Erudite here in the UK, who just seem to have just this amazing team. It's quite a small agency, but they have almost like a kind of all-star team of just amazing people that work there. And Miracle's one of those. And again, like, you know, she's one of those people that's quite happy to show her work. Mm-hmm. You know, like when you do an exam and it says like, you know, show your workings. Miracle's one of those kind of people that, again, sort of works through problems and shows her workings as she goes, and then shares it with the SEO community of like, you know, right, here's this problem that I came against and I didn't know how to fix it. And now I've worked out how to fix it, and here's how I fixed it. So, you know, everybody else can save themselves a whole bunch of time.
That's and the list is incredible of people that are constantly sharing, and you picked a number of people that
I feel really bad for all the people we didn't mention.
I know.
I'm sorry if I missed you.
We'll cover it in the notes and throw the links out there. But I didn't want to put you in the box there, but at the same time, it represents kind of the best of the SEO community to be able to share continually without need for transaction or without a want for compensation. They're trying to give back. And this ties our entire conversation together, is that's why we love conferences. That's why we feel so removed from our SMX conferences, our meetups, our stand-ups, because we want to share this information. We want to demystify, debug, and we want to help businesses understand this is the right way to do things. And certainly part of the SEO community's, I guess, lanyard, so to speak, of skill sets. Well, let me restate it. Part of what is not really expected, but part of what you can really do from excelling your career is to be able to share and be able to learn from the interactions and be able to scale up your techniques by just being bold and being open with what you're doing. And that's what we're seeing with this list right here. So I greatly appreciate you putting this together, and I really want to showcase it because it's a rarity that somebody will actually give such a shout out to the rest of the community. So kudos for that, sir.
Thank you. I think and you guys do a massive contribution to this as well. I think, the responsibility of having a platform, and I probably massively flatter myself that I have a platform, but it's like, if you get an opportunity to kind of shine a light on others, that's a really cool thing to do.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Is there anything that we can do for you, promote you today?
I would love for you to mention my YouTube channel. So all the kind of events that I've spoken about and all the stellar people that I've had come and speak at the events, they're all videoed. They're all on the Optimisey YouTube channel. So if anybody wants to, after they finish liking, subscribing to Edge of the Web, of course, if they also wanted to throw a like and a subscribe my way too, that would be awesome.
I was going to say, no, I'm not going to use it until you change your Grammarly over to the US version. But now that you plugged in Edge, absolutely go over to Optimisey over at YouTube. A fantastic collection of videos from the stand-up events, as well as much more things, many more things there. Latest Elise, Luke Carthy, many more speakers there. You want anything else? Final thoughts for our listening audience today?
I think just to reiterate that, do one thing. SEO can seem super overwhelming, and we kind of touched on like why people deliberately make it seem complicated.
Right.
But just do one thing. Like mess with it, break it, work out why you break it, fix it, move forward. Absolutely. And you don't have to hire a sizable SEO to get these individual things right. Look at your own content. Make sure you get it plugged in. It's not broken. Look at your speed. Don't load 4 megs of 5 megs of. Please don't. Please don't. That's like a public service announcement. Please don't abuse us like that. But it's going to win in your favor. Do one thing and do it right. Make yourself a little bit better each and every day. I love the mantra, Andrea, and I certainly appreciate your time today. Thanks very much. Absolutely. Absolutely. If you want to follow Andrew, make sure that you track him down at Optimisey with an S, not a Z. You probably need to try to squat on the Optimisey tag just to take care of that. Facebook, Optimisey with an S. LinkedIn, Andrew Cock-Starkey. Username on Instagram is Optimisey, and YouTube is Optimisey. So you got all those taken care of. We certainly appreciate your time today, and we'll be lifting you up from abroad. And you're welcome back at any point in time on the show, man. Thanks very much. It's been a real pleasure. More than welcome. All right. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you're really feeling up to it today, we'd certainly appreciate a shout out on our iTunes podcast. Give us a review. Let us know how we're doing on our show, because it certainly helps on our algorithm and gets our show out to more listeners like you. Just don't hold it to yourself. Sharing is caring. Thanks to our sponsor, Site Strategic, our title sponsor for the show. Make sure you see all the must-see videos and much more over at edgeofthewebradio.com. That's edgeofthewebradio.com. Next show, we're going to be talking to, I don't know who we're going to be talking to next show. I don't have it in front of me. It'll be a mystery. Check out our news podcast on a regular basis, dropping every Tuesday. And from all of us over at Edge, be safe, be well, and do not be a piece of cyber driftwood. We'll talk to you next week. Bye-bye.